A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, fellow viewers. Welcome back to Wacana English Edition with me, Meor Addelan, on this glorious and hot, if I may say so, Friday evening, wherever it is that you are watching us right now. Thank you so much. You could be watching us on our Facebook page, also on our website. Again, thousands of thanks to all of our fellow viewers who are watching us today. As you may already know, Wacana English Edition is brought to you to accommodate, or should I say, for us to discuss about all of the things that is very important to our nation, specifically to our international and English viewers, because we always talk about the political issues, we talk about the economical issues, as well as the social landscape of Malaysia. And more so tonight, we have a very, very hot topic as well. But before we get into it, I do have a riddle for all of you at home right now. What goes up but never comes down? Normally, you would actually know this answer because it is a famous riddle. And if your answer is age, then I would say that, well, you may be just half right. Because apparently nowadays, what goes up and never comes down also applicable to household good items in regards to their prices. Yes, folks, it is something that is of a concern right now. The increasing cost of living that we are experiencing here in Malaysia specifically. This issue has been an ongoing trend for the longest time ever, and it is something that a lot of us are obviously very concerned of. We are very we really want to know what is going on in regards of us, the people of Malaysia, on what the government is actually doing, what is actually going on in regards to the rising cost of living. And it does give you a lot of strains in regards of budgeting and so on and so forth. Again, the question is, how long will Malaysians, how long will we have to endure with all of these challenges, and what potential relief might the upcoming budget of 2024 bring to us? That's what we really want to dive in today, and we have two very special expert panels together with us to go through this topic very much. We have on my far left, we have Mr. Saravanan Tambiraja, the former Chief Executive Officer. Sarah, good evening to you. How are you?
Good evening, Meor.
All right, thank you so much for making your way down here.
Thank you.
And of course, the rows in between the two thorns that we have in the studio, we have the Faculty of Businesses and Economics Deputy Dean of Research Associate Professor Dr. Iselin Ismail. Doctor, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks so much for having me, Meor.
All right.
And good to see you too, Sarah.
All right. The travel wasn't that hard, right? It was close by, right? Within distance.
It's a wet and humid Friday evening. Good start to the weekend, although some people have started yesterday or even the day before, long weekend. So our topics today, quite damner, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely so. Malaysians, we definitely can't, we always take advantage of that particular
but we like to complain. This is a coffee shop conversation.
It is so. Okay, so let's dive into the topic at hand. As mentioned, we want to talk about Malaysia cost of living. Is it too hot to handle? And as mentioned, I would like to address this first question to you, Doctor, because again, looking at it this way, just painting you a scenario, at about 1,500 ringgit, 1,500 ringgit per month, for instance, Malaysia's minimum wage is not that far off from the pre-pandemic income of 2,160 ringgit for 50% of the employees in the country. And to put things into context, Bank Negara had actually proposed a living wage benchmark of 2,600 ringgit back in 2018. Now, is 2,600 ringgit acceptable? Is it really an acceptable number, especially in this year, in 2023? You have concern on your face, Doctor. Please.
If you ask any fresh graduates, they would disagree outright. But let me take you a little bit further back before we get to the current situation. 10 years ago, our minimum wage was at 900 ringgit.
Okay.
And of course, now we are 1,500 minimum wage, of course. But as you rightly mentioned just now, 50% of the working population, so the median income is about 2,000, what was it just now?
2,160. Yeah.
So it's not quite,
there yet.
There yet. And in fact, it is actually higher in KL. So it has, I think the median wage in KL is closer to 4,000. But of course, there are people who are lower. When we're talking about averages here,
sure,
there are people who are lower. There are obviously people who are way, way above that scale. But KL, Selangor, as well as Penang, is a little bit higher than the country average. However, if I want to benchmark whether that's enough or not, there's a report that was launched a couple of months back by University Malaya in collaboration with EPF called Belanjawanku. And this is, I believe, their subsequent edition. This is their 2022-2023 edition, where they actually scout the whole country and did a survey of what is your basic needs in terms of the amount that you need to spend. And as a benchmark, of course, they have it by state. But in Klang Valley per se, if you're single and if you're driving, you need about 2,600. Okay, so if you are earning 2,600 gross, net of tax, it's not enough. Okay, so even that living wage, but that was based like 4 years back for Bank Negara, that is not enough. On a net terms, you would need a little bit more than 2,006 gross salary. How much more? Depends, because if you're just going to meet basic needs, you need closer to 3 perhaps. You want savings, you want, entertainment a little bit, and what, those things that get you going. Life is not just waking up, going to work, sleep, and whatnot. So,
all right, that's painting the picture quite as vivid as you possibly can, Doctor. But I do want to get to you, Sarah. When the doctor was touching about the basic needs, maybe you can just educate to all our fellow viewers. What are actually the basic needs? Because again, I mean, is it as simple as just having a car, a house, and that's it? So what are the kind of things that is very, very important for anyone out there, let alone living whether in Klang Valley or outside? What are the basic needs that one should be mindful of?
Now, when we talk about a consumer, a consumer has a few rights.
All right.
Under the consumer rights, we actually have 8 rights, basically. And one of the right is right for the basic needs. Now, under the right of basic needs, there are a few elements down there. Number 1, affordable and readily available food.
Okay.
Talking about healthcare, accessible healthcare.
Sure.
Easily, when talking about public transport, easily available and reach to your last mile of your home. All right. Now, of course, the grievance of people talking about the traffic nowadays is another story. All right. And if you're sick, you have a hospital, which all these need to be provided by the government. Yeah. So again, when we talk about cost of living, people's pinch is now the current issue is food. Food is very expensive. Yeah. And I mean, people are posting in social media. Okay, now people are talking about the rice, imported rice is very expensive. Now there are also issues of certain industries going to increase their product price, food price. And end of the day, who's going to pay is, of course, a consumer. And when doctor was talking about wages, living wages and everything, I totally agree with doctor just now when she said the living wage is it's not same compared to others. I mean, it's different from each state. If you are earning certain amount of KL, you may be considered as B40.
Yeah.
But maybe in other states, you are M40 or even T20s. So it's that one side doesn't fit all. All right.
Yeah.
So again, there's a lot of issues down there. And we hope that the government will, of course, empower consumers end of the day. Because consumers currently are suffering, especially the B40 group. They are getting vulnerable each and every day. When they go for they are shopping, they want to buy their groceries and everything, they are getting frustrated. Just now you mentioned what goes up never comes down. Well, of course, age, and in this context is price. But again, there's another element, it's the frustration.
Okay.
The frustration of consumers, which is quite heavy currently.
All right. I never knew that my riddle can actually be interpreted in so many different kind of answers. Very interesting indeed. Again, just to borrow what Sarah has actually mentioned, Doctor, because as how we understand it, we as Malaysians, specifically as consumers, as Malaysian, it is somewhat of a never-ending cycle, because every single time we hear about this, remember the whole fiasco about how the price of flour went up very dramatically, the price of chicken, price of sugar. Eggs as well. I mean, at some point it was like, wow, everything is literally going up.
Yes.
And it is also not just our food. We're talking about transportation as well. We're talking about the fact that, as what you have explained as well, the low wages that a lot of individuals out there are earning, unfortunately, it's not enough to sustain themselves, let alone having a proper lifestyle, especially for the ones who are living in the Klang Valley. But according to reports, the pay, now this is according to report, quoting this directly, the pay has increased and inflation did somewhat drop. Now, where is the problem actually rooted here? I mean, like, where is the common ground failing to meet? Why we are still having this conversation? Why are still prices going up, even though inflation is going down and the minimum wage is going up? Why is this still happening, Doctor?
When you talk about statistics, which is what you're quoting just now, we always get the, I would say, complaint again, that it's not really reflected on the ground. I don't feel it. Even if we compare last year when GDP growth was like 8%, everybody's about 8%, we're not even feeling it, This year is a little bit more realistic. The target is going to be around 4.5%. So that's a bit more realistic. And even that, half of what was reported last year, we're not really feeling it.
Okay.
Because people feel that they are worse off because their money doesn't stretch as far. Statistics are only good for I would say, averaging.
Okay.
You
so
might be
so it has no use then, these numbers?
No. It is still, you still need a target.
Okay.
Because without a target, what are you going to hit, right? And it's very difficult for you to actually have, individual targets for something.
Sure.
So those statistics, are calculated on like some global standard.
Data.
So that they are comparable across countries. So that's fine. But you need to also understand those statistics are averages. Okay, and even in my class, I always say, as an example, when if I say average mark for the class is 85, how many of you got 85? So averages don't really reflect what's real on the ground, but it's still something useful for policymakers to actually have some sort of target indicator where they are heading. Of course, on the individual side, as you rightly mentioned, median income, so that means less than half, is actually earning like 2006 and below, and minimum wage 1,005. Okay, on the upper end, the top 10% are earning 15,000. Top 10% earning above 9,000. Top 5% above 15,000. Top 1%,
I mean, the sky's the limit.
So now you see where the average is actually hitting. You have the top 1% earning above 100,000, and the bottom 10% earning 1,005. Where does the average lead you?
So, I mean, like, it can be quite confusing in a way until you really, drill down into it, really understand what the parameters are, what these numbers represent. Then you're actually able to really understand what these numbers actually represent. And I guess that's, Sarah, that's where the confusion actually comes in, because what is being published online, what's been published in our publications is just that, so-and-so has quoted this number, so-and-so has quoted this number. But to the normal consumer, like you and I, we take it at face value, because for what we understand is that, so average is not that bad, but still people are suffering. Do you believe so?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Now, again, I'm quoting what you have said. What goes up doesn't come down.
All right, twice you quoted me today. Okay.
Because it relates back to whatever we are talking about. When just now you mentioned wages have gone up, minimum wage. Now, the moment minimum wage have gone up, who actually benefited out of that? It's actually bottom 40 groups.
Okay.
Yeah. And previously, before the minimum wage went up, do you think they have savings? I don't think so. They have savings. Basically, whatever they're earning is actually cukup makan for that month.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, come back to reality. Anything been provided to the consumers, the businesses will know. Okay, these people have extra money, and that's where we can see the price increase goes up. All right.
Okay.
Again, as you mentioned, everybody is quoting say inflation has gone down. Now, why does people think inflation has gone down? Again, they must understand our inflation was single digit because it was heavily subsidized by the government with a lot of support from the government. Without these subsidies, our inflation will be 2 figures.
All right. Should it was lifted, then it would have been a catastrophe.
It will be a catastrophe for consumers,
Wow.
especially for Malaysia. It even can become worse without government interference. I mean, thanks to the government at that time. I mean, I'm not saying only this government. All the previous government actually had somehow rather assisted consumers down there. I mean, they know the pinch of consumers. I mean, they know people are suffering. They have subsidized many things. Of course, one of the things was on energy bills, the tariff.
Yeah.
Second, cooking oil. And certain, now of course, learning from pandemic.
Yeah.
Before pandemic, we never had issue with chicken and eggs. Okay, we are a country, we are self-sufficient of chicken and egg. After pandemic, we have learned our food security was really at worst level. At that time, everybody was facing there's no enough supply of food in markets. So we have, we have faced that issues. And then coming back now, we have to give subsidies for the penternak ayam and penternak, what is this? For the eggs and
for the eggs and chicken people putting it there.
So we are come to that level. So again, back to our food security as well.
Okay.
How we are going to improve.
All right. So this may be controversial for me to ask both of you. I just want to leave it to whoever it is who's willing to answer this.
Yeah.
Does that also mean, as what Sarah has actually explained to all of us, is it as simple as saying that we Malaysians are just spoiled because we have been taken care of for the longest time? Any problems that comes by, anytime there's a general election, every time there's a budget, every time there's Hari Raya, there's Christmas, Chinese New Year, we always get these chocolates and goodies and whatnot. Are we just spoiled, Doctor?
We are brought up like that. So if the next government or the current government decides that this is one thing about subsidies, it's nice to have, but it's something that's so difficult to take away.
Yeah.
Because it's like an upbringing per se in your household.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you look across the border, say Indonesia, Thailand and whatnot, where the government does not do this to begin with, or it was so painful that they just took it away all in one shot. One thing about subsidies is that it's something that once you start, it's very difficult to stop.
Yeah.
So we are conditioned to it. And any government who says that, I can't afford to do this, they're looking to be decimated in that sense. But I would say that the level of subsidies are looking to be a little bit unsustainable.
Correct.
And, it would not be wise for the present government to add more things to the items they are subsidizing. Because even maintaining the current subsidy levels for all the goods that they are subsidizing is getting costlier and costlier.
Okay.
Because the base price is already higher than it was before. So perhaps they might be looking towards targeted subsidies or even, direct cash handout so that you decide what you want to eat rather than they subsidize and everybody gets the same, whether you are T 1% or you are bottom 40%, you're paying the same price for your slice of bread or, plate of rice. So, perhaps then that slow transition back to a bit more realistic market prices might be more sustainable in the long run. Because at the end of the day, a subsidy where the government does not have enough revenue to support it, so that means they're borrowing to actually pay for this. Yeah. And this borrowing will be paid for by the next generation, so your children or grandchildren. So if you don't have any, that's fine. But if you do have, they are paying for it. Correct. So you're consuming everything now. and your grandchildren will be paying for it. You don't even advocate that for your own family.
Yeah, because again, when it comes to, I echo what Doctor has actually mentioned when it comes to subsidies. Again, it is a very sensitive subject, and what you have mentioned as well, that is so true. The fact that we are so used to it, we were introduced to it, and should you take it away from us, then chaos will fall upon our beloved country, because the fact that people are so used to getting it, and again, it's like a baby, it's like a child. You give a child a toy. And the child is happy with the toy, then they and should you take it away from them, then they would throw a tantrum. Yeah, exactly. So I think very much interesting.
I would like to add something.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Now, when we talk about targeted subsidy, of course, we need to advocate for targeted subsidies.
Okay.
We don't want overburden the government. I think now the current government is looking into the PADU system, where they're looking into the targeted subsidies. We hope that that thing will be established sooner, so that we can see the channel. We want the subsidy to be channeled to the people who really deserve it.
All right. But the question to you is that, is targeted subsidies actually work? Before you answer, we are going to be taking a short break right now. Do not go anywhere. Stay your target on with us, because we're going to be back here for Wacana English Edition. Don't go away. All right, thank you so much for staying on with us here on Wacana English Edition. As mentioned, hot day today, as well as hot topic. It is actually too hot to handle. Actually, the topic that we have up for you guys today, which is cost of living, too hot to handle, together with both of our guests here. We have Dr. Islin together with Sarah with us. Now, before the break, I've actually asked you, Sarah, about the targeted subsidies. You said that it is something that the government is going to implement. But the question is, there's a lot of skeptics out there in saying that, well, this is never going to work. People are going to find some loopholes around it. But honestly, to your own opinion, will it actually work, and will it benefit all Malaysians, all consumers out there?
Okay, just to add on what you said, loopholes. Whatever government introduced, definitely there'll be a loophole for consumers. Or even industry or businesses.
Sure.
But anyway, coming back to targeted subsidy, how effective is going to be. Now, who really needs these subsidies? Those who are earning high income, or those who are earning low income? So we need to be very clear on that. Those who are earning low income, especially the B40 groups, all right, end of the day, they are struggling to put quality and safe food over the table for their children. All right. So these are the people who actually need assistance from the government. All right. And of course, certain group of M40. Now, there are other questions as well. Why does T20 doesn't get any subsidies? All right.
Should they?
They are waiting. We are contributing a lot. We are investing.
They are paying more tax.
More tax. Government must take this into consideration as well.
Sure.
Right. It's not that we say don't pull out all type of subsidies. Even a tax incentive also is a kind of subsidy as well for T20.
Yeah.
So maybe government can come out with few methods which can help assist all this T20 as well. We are not saying that you need to give a blanket like now, and in terms of energy tariff, it's a blanket subsidy for everyone.
Yeah.
If you're using below than 700, It's basically you are heavily been subsidized, even though you are staying in a big bungalow or even a single flat or something like that. So when we have this targeted subsidy mechanism, all right, government can focus on that group. Eventually, that group will benefit out of it, and they can come out from this extreme poor situation and so on. And we don't have this miskin tega issues anymore in Malaysia. Right. So that's a good initiative. We need to support that. All right. And of course, I mean, we are saying that we want to become a developed nation. All right. We can't be a developed nation by saying about investing a lot of money in terms of subsidy, but not focusing on the basic infrastructure of the government of the country.
All right.
So if we have more targeted subsidy, we can save a lot of in terms of subsidy, and that money can be channeled to provide better healthcare, better public transport to people using this kind of facilities.
Now, pertaining to what Sarah has just explained, Doctor, just want to ask your opinion on the same matter as well, because I mean, like that's one thing that has always puzzled me in regards of how our nation specifically, we are great in coming up with ideas, but when it comes to the implementation, when it comes to the enforcement of it, has somewhat fall short one way or another. So, to your opinion, targeted subsidies as simple to implement as it is being proposed?
It's easier said than done, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Because
if it's easy, everyone will be doing it.
If you're going to target, you need to know who you are going to target, and database is the problem here. So perhaps what the government has done with the electricity tariffs is that they've capped the amount that's subsidized to a certain level, but beyond that it's not subsidized. So if you're living in a bigger bungalow or whatever, you'll get a small portion out of your total bill that's actually subsidized. So relatively it's really minor to you, but for like somebody who's in a small flat, that is a big chunk of their electricity bill. So it's a relative thing. Perhaps if you're living in a bungalow, that little thing doesn't matter, although everybody's getting the same. But it is something that's easy to roll out, and enforcement is a non-issue and things like that. So in terms of implementation costs, it is lower. So you have to take it on a holistic basis. So it's not targeted like, I need to cover somebody who's B40, their complete bill, but to some level where they can maintain a decent standard of living. So the same concept can be rolled out to perhaps the fuel subsidy, rather than capping the price. So subsidizing, regardless if my full tank is 200 or 20, right? Maybe they should consider only subsidizing up to a certain point. Maybe a little motorbike would be full tank, 15, 20 ringgit that's subsidized. Beyond that, you're paying market rates or something like that. So that would lower the whole subsidy bill without really taking away the subsidy. So taking away subsidy is like going cold turkey. It's something that you need to do gradually so that people have time to adjust. You have to be fair to the population as well. If I'm used to paying certain thing and suddenly it jumps 2, 3, 4, even if I'm in the top 1%, I would feel it. And if there's no compensation from some other angle, like tax incentives and whatnot, they'll be thinking, what's in there for me? I'm paying all these taxes, I'm putting in all this investment in the country, and everything I'm paying, without government caring for me as well. So the government also needs to think about caring for the wider society.
I mean, that's the whole position that the government needs to be in regards of showing love to all and not being discriminative to certain kind of people. Yes, granted, the B40, they may need extra attention, but should you just put all your love in that portion, others will feel neglected, and they will be neglected in one way or another, and that would also disrupt the whole, the whole nation basically, because at the end of the day, everybody plays their role differently, but still contributing to the nation. Speaking about some initiatives that is being done, Sarah, I just wanted to ask you about this initiative, the Rahmah initiative, which was started by the late Domestic Trade and Cost of Living Minister, Datuk Sri Sailuddin Ayub. We saw that the government has pushed for the Rahmah sale initiative for imported rice from the government to quickly address this problem. So what is your opinion on this? Was it the right move for with the imported rice, or was it somewhat of a lukewarm kind of quick fix kind of thing?
I don't think so. It's a quick fix, but out of 10 stores, you only can get rice in 2 stores, and these 2 stores only have about 20 packet of rice. First come, first serve. So that's the reality of the ground now, and government has realized this issue, all right, and I don't know what is their perception, but anyway, they have gone down to the people, and by having this initiative selling imported rice for these groups, it's a good move, I will say, because based on feedback from consumers, there are certain areas where they can't get this rice. Now they are getting it, but of course not in a big volume. At least certain groups, they are getting this rice. All right, and when you ask Rama initiative, okay, is it good? It's for short term, yes, but in the long term, we need to have proper policy in terms of food security.
I mean, it's a stopgap, isn't it?
Yes.
Right now.
Correct.
For now, when it comes to the Rama initiative.
Yes.
Yeah. So, stopgap just to fix that problem. At least it is doing that. It fixes that problem in that moment in time. But honestly, they do need to, or should I say that the government needs to come up with a much better, longer term solution to address this particular issue, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. In long term, we need a proper food security policy. All right. Basically, in a report, in a consumption, Malaysia, in average, consume about 78 kilogram of rice in a year.
Well, we're Malaysia anyway, so yeah, makes sense.
And our country needs about 3 million tons of rice in a year for to make this demand.
To accommodate
this demand. So again, basically, if you see in the last 10 years, right, there is a study said our rice supply has been going down 0.7% every year.
Okay.
So that shows our food security really, I mean, in terms of rice, we're having a problem. Government have realized this, and I'm sitting in NACOL, and during the NACOL, they have come out with the food security plan for the country. And they have projected in 10 years' time, our self-sufficiency will be more than 140%. Now, currently, we are at around 60%.
All right, so you're doubling that number within the next...
Not me, the government.
The government, okay.
All right. So the government anticipated they're going to increase the food security in terms of rice. So that's a good thing, all right? But we hope that the policy will be taken in a positive way and will be implemented and enforced so that after 10 years, we won't have this issue anymore.
Right. I mean, it is okay, or should I say, it is important for anyone out there to actually have a short-term solution to cater to any problems that may arise within that span of time. But ultimately, we do need to have a much better plan moving forward so that we learn from whatever that has happened before and try to rectify it and not go down the same route again in the future.
We already faced that during pandemic. We know the issue is real. We just need to accept and move on and build up a proper action plan to lead so that in future we don't have this problem. We need to say, we really have problem. We must admit the problem. Without admitting the problem, we're never going to move forward about that.
Exactly. Who said COVID only gives you bad things? It actually teaches us about a lot of stuff. We appreciate life more, thanks to COVID. No, I can't really say thanks to COVID. No, I might not. We don't want to go back to that dark age. Changing the gears a bit. Now let's jump to a topic where everyone is in love with. We're talking about Budget 2024. Every Malaysians out there love this topic because everyone would want to know what is in it for them. I remember the times where a lot of, my family members at least, we would run up in front of the TV just to make sure, because both my parents were government servants, so they want to know, okay, how much am I getting again for Raya this year, that kind of a thing. But running away from those kind of thinking, ultimately, what should be on top of the list in regards of Budget 2024, Doctor?
I think we're still going through the cycle of Budget Madani 2023. A lot of the initiatives that are put there in that budget, and it covers a lot of ground, have yet to actually start rolling because some of those incentives and policies are only gazetted by the middle of the year. So we have yet to see the impact of those, policies and incentives. So, to add more things into the 2024 budget without seeing the full impact of 2023 budget, it's a little bit premature, I think. We need to see what's actually working, because I was just looking through a snapshot of 2023 budget. I'm like, wow, so many. How many actually has been reached? I think maybe 10% if they're lucky. And most of it are expenditure on subsidies.
Correct.
And handouts, all those investment incentives, we've yet to see how that is actually going to pan out. But, if you're going to ask me about wish list for budget 2024, what is hot right now? I think the government definitely can't ignore issues on food security and the old way of doing business in terms of agriculture policy. We can't go on with that. It needs a radical thinking. It needs people from outside agriculture perhaps to come in and, kind of like spearhead something different, because I think we can't just focus on rice.
Yeah.
You need something more on, not just rice. You need something more on your plate than just rice.
Of course, you need your veggies, you need your proteins.
And our agri policy has so far been focused on commodities because we are a trading nation.
Yeah.
So, but I think palm oil has almost reached its maximum right now in terms of, the amount of land that you want to plant palm oil. And also palm oil is getting a bit of problem even selling now to their traditional market. So perhaps agri policy should be looking domestically in the near term, mid to near term, to focus more on domestic consumption needs. But that would need not just incentive, but I think technical assistance, because you need to know what to plant. Because now, if you go to the kampung, you got land, let's plant palm oil or rubber or something, because this is something, a commodity, cash crop. But I think for people to start turning their farmland or land to planting, say, food, they don't see much in terms of, payback.
Yeah, the reward is not
there. So
great,
the government has to look at not just at the primary production stage for food production, but along the whole supply chain. Because food supply chain has a cartel, like it or not. So even if you see increases in the supermarket, the farmer down there barely feels anything of all the increase. So, there needs to be a mechanism where increases in price get fed through to the farmer so that they can be incentivized to plant more to meet the demand. And, vice versa. If demand's not there, then they can adjust. But now it's all trapped in that supply chain.
So basically, Sarah, all PMX needs to do on the next tabling of the budget, he should just copy-paste anything that was presented last year and just present it brand new with just more colours and more fancy words. But it's the same thing, isn't it? Because, again, as what the doctor has actually mentioned, it is true that not a lot that you have actually able to identify or even seen any progress of it, due to the fact that a lot of subsidies have been given too much of a focus to the rakyat, to the consumers, to the people of Malaysia. So, easy job lah, isn't it?
Easily said to be done. All right. Now, of course, he just tabled somewhere around February. And most doctors saying gazetted is just a couple of months ago.
Correct.
So, again, have to come from my mouth. But anyway, we need to give the government some time to see how these things work out. I mean, the opportunity must be given. All right. Things won't like today you tanam esok dah berbuah. It doesn't work like that. I mean, coming back to doctors on food security, right? One of our thing we need to understand, we are a net importer of food, and our import bill is up to about almost 60 billion.
For import, okay.
For import.
60B, that's a capital B, right?
60 billion we are actually using to import. You're talking about meat, rice. Now we already go into chicken, eggs, fruits, dairies, and so on. All right. Now, if we, in the budget, we can focus on developing our own agriculture in future, we can reduce the dependency on import. And if you can reduce that billions can be focused to somewhere. All right. But again, it's not an easy job, because when you're talking about farming, it involves land. Now, land doesn't fall under federal government's jurisdiction, and that's a lot of red tapes and so on.
Sure.
Right? That's another issue by itself. Interagency, they have conflict of interest as well. Right? So again, the government must look into how we can remove all these red tapes and bring together all the players to build up our agriculture policy.
Yeah.
All right. Now again, maybe in 10 years of time, with a proper food security plan policy, we might be a net exporter. We must, as what the doctor was saying, must have some radical changes in our agriculture policy. Definitely, because currently it's already old style. Yeah. All right. We need to bring in a lot of technologies, innovation into our agriculture. And sad to say, our farmers are protected? No. So we need to get our farmers to be inculcated with the capacity building and so on.
Yeah, exactly. Because again, when it comes to all of this procedures and process, there's a lot of red tape, as you mentioned. There's a lot of red tape that a lot of people need to, jump through to. Just to cut them off. So we're gonna have a short break right now. That's the best thing with us. You don't have to go through any red tape. You can just stay on with us here, because we're gonna be taking a break and come back with the last block together with you guys here on Wacana English Edition. Don't go away. Stay with us. Thank you so much for still staying on with us here on Wacana English Edition on Sinar Daily. Once again, should you have any comments or any opinions that you do want to share with us, feel free to use your fingers, whether on your laptop or on your phones or your tablets. Do give us a comment down there. We would love to hear what you have to say, especially for tonight's topic with our two lovely guests here. We got Dr. Azlin together with Sarah. All right, moving on to the show. I'm drawn to you, Doctor, in regards of what was actually mentioned. The Economy Minister Rafizi Ramli's progressive wage policy that aims to systematically raise workers' wages and will complement the minimum wage policy. Where do you see this headed, and how will this fit in our current landscape? Is it as easy as just give everybody just 4,000 and just be done with it? As simple as that. That would solve a lot of problems, wouldn't it?
If you're the employee, but maybe not the employer. You don't want your employer to close shop in doing so as well. So it needs to be tied to perhaps productivity. We always say that, any increase in wages should be tied to productivity. But how do you increase productivity? So the businesses, especially SMEs, need to be perhaps incentivized to upgrade their processes, automate, innovate, and things like that, which is actually not cheap and very risky as well. But undertaking all that investment, then they can perhaps, be made to see that increasing wages due to the productivity is like a return to investment rather than just pure cost. If they can view it, say, for example, like investment in energy efficiency, you change the light bulbs, things like that. But, if you can actually see this like a return on investment rather than just purely a cost factor to you, then perhaps it's easier for employers to actually, embrace perhaps this policy. But on another note, I would also like to touch on perhaps this progressive wage policy strategy to look at it a little bit more holistically, like what I mentioned at the beginning just now, the disparity between the top earners and the bottom earners. That wage gap is also something that the government needs to take a look at. Because if the gap is getting wider and wider, inequality will become a problem. So if you're pushing the bottom to say 4,000, but the top is going even higher, faster, you're never going to solve the problem. So perhaps some policy to reduce that gap. But of course, doing it at a macro level might be a bit difficult. But there are strategies where some countries look at the pay disparity between the CEO and an average employee within an organization. Of course, if you look worldwide, they've not solved this because everybody's saying market forces determines. But how productive can the CEO be if his salary is more than 200 times? An average employee is really 200 times more productive? So there needs to be a little bit more realistic wage gap to, perhaps also make sure any productivity gains is equally shared within an organization.
All right, but your opinion, Sarah, on this, because again, we've been painted with this picture, like, progress in your career. When you come in, you may be an exec, so you're going to earn X amount. Then you're going to be promoted into an assistant manager per se, and a manager because we have always been promised that, to climb the highest ladder possible for you to earn the big bucks. But should you make this gap, as what Doctor has actually mentioned, if you don't control the width of this gap, I mean, if it's growing further and further, won't that deter people from actually working for anybody anymore? Won't they just want to become their own businessman, like becoming a gig economy contributor at the end of the day, rather than, kais pagi, makan pagi, that kind of thing, working with people? Your opinion?
I mean, again, when the government said they're going to come out with this progressive wage, I mean, to implement is not easy, all right? And they need to look into a lot of sectors. And of course, as a consumer, as a people, they want to see progressive wage because progressive wage basically covers your cost of living.
Yes.
All right. When your cost of living goes up, I mean, your progressive wage will go on. I mean, based on productivity as well. But when we talk about this progressive wage, we hope that the government can look into incentives based. I mean, we can't be putting pressure on businesses as well. All right. As what you said, if you don't have business in our Malaysia, then our economy will be tutup kedai lah. Right? So when we have a supporting system between the government and the businesses, all right, businesses, we need to let them maybe try and error first. I mean, are they willing to adopt this thing? Maybe give them an opportunity to adopt this system. If it works out, maybe it can be taken up by themselves. No need to have government intervention. If there is no takers on the industry level, and that's where they need to come out with bills or whatever. Right? Of course, as a consumer, we would like to see that progressive wage. I mean, we have been sitting on minimum wage for quite some time.
Sure.
And looking into our economic situation. I mean, war between Russia and Ukraine. Our currency exchange, Malaysian ringgit, is actually decreasing moment by every moment in these things. And we have a never-ending story of climate change and so on, all right? And it's actually affected not only Malaysia, in every other aspect of the world, right? So hopefully when we have this, we can improve our productivity, number one. People will be happy, all right? When they are happy, right? Of course, productivity will go up.
Yeah.
It's a mix and match.
Yeah.
Hopefully, things can be
Because ultimately, it's about pleasing the people, pleasing pleasing the consumers out there. Because if we're happy, then automatically we'll become more proactive. Automatically, we will do things wholeheartedly. Because again, we're in a space where we're happy as much as we can. I mean, like, granted, there's nobody's perfect out there. Obviously, we're gonna have problems here and there, but it's all correlated. Everything is all connected, Doctor. And to find that happiness, the government obviously needs to do something to satisfy us. Hence what they're doing with the subsidies. That satisfies us. That gives us love. But to what extent? And because I mean, is it actually fair then for people outside there that, that things are expensive, you don't eat outside lah. Oh, things are expensive. Oh, you should save lah. Don't complain. You hear this kind of things. I mean, like, is it fair, or should the government really come up with a proper plan to accommodate this?
You don't want a nanny state, do you?
No,
yeah.
we don't.
So, yeah, if the government says, I'm paying for everything, hence I can tell you that you should not eat out but cook at home, they're justified to do that because they're nannying you and you are allowing them to do that.
Okay.
So perhaps, it's a give and take thing, So if you are much more open as a population to say that I am going to be responsible for my own living in terms of keeping a particular standard of living within my means. And the government, have no right to come and tell me what I do and eat or not eat in my own home, then, that tells you are a much more progressive society in that sense, more mature. Right now, we're behaving a little bit like kids. But that being said, once Minister Rafizi mentioned about, eating at home more, I tried that because I believe the situation, that situation is a bit more holistic than just, eating out a lot, because it's also a factor of long working hours, long commutes, and especially if you're smaller families, there are cost advantages to actually eating out. And having a policy that kind of shames you eating out is also counterproductive, because that will affect the livelihoods of the vendors. So you want to actually strike some sort of balance there. Middle point. You can still have a little bit of that pleasure, but preparing simple meals perhaps is something that, if you haven't done before, is something that you might want to consider for a few days of the week, because you don't want to be cooking a storm one day and then eat reheated food for the next 5 days.
It's not healthy as well.
You're not used
you will
to
like it. Understand. No. I mean, that's actually, whatever it is that Rafizi has actually mentioned, there's some goodness in there as well. Again, should someone actually practices eating at home more often, cooking themselves preparing their own food, it's fine. But ultimately, right now, especially, I think every Malaysians are actually going through this. Should you go to any hypermarket or any supermarket out there, to spend on a week's grocery of a family of 4, for instance, you're talking about spending, 200? 250 perhaps, because you're spending on chicken, you're spending on rice, eggs, and garlics, and what have you. And we're talking about hypermarkets which are selling cheaper stuff, cheaper in that sense, not mentioning, all those high-end groceries and whatnot. So what are the long-term solutions that the government should be taking, Sarah? Because the fact that obviously you representing FOMCA, people do gripe to you a lot and they want the government to do something about this. So what would your advice be to the government?
Okay, advice to the government. That's a good question. Now, one of the things is they must listen to the consumers at the ground. What is their problem, right? The current problem they are facing is, of course, lack of supply of food. All right, and as a government who is prihatin, all right, they need to listen and take action to overcome this problem. Now, when we talk just now, we are talking about subsidies and so on. Now, subsidies should be given when there is extraordinary circumcision, like there is a lack of supply in the country, all right, and there's an issue down there, all right, and subsidies can be given, all right. So that's where subsidies are coming in. Now, always the perception is if there's no chicken, stop eating chicken. If there's
simple solution right there, isn't it?
Yeah, and people will be saying, okay, so kalau ayam tak ada, you go and eat fish. Fish is not cheap.
Yeah,
it's very expensive.
Yeah, ikan kembung can be quite expensive lately.
Yes. And now the issue is when there's no rice, we can't be there telling them stop eating rice. Okay. So again, government must take a proactive role to overcome this. They must have some projection.
All right.
They should aware when again just now we are touching about rice. They should aware when India and Vietnam had export issues.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, they want to protect their own country and supply and so on. They should have anticipated this before. At least
so is it just a lack of foresight then? Actually?
Yes, definitely it's lack of foresight. I mean, even in the case of chicken and egg as well. All right. So every time when there is issue, then only government is taking action. It's already too late.
So it's more reactive than proactive.
Yes. So government must go into a proactive level, anticipate the problem. When you anticipate the problem, you have your 6 month ahead planning. At the time when we need most, we have that supply. Especially, we don't want any issues when there's the festive seasons, holiday season, when there's a lot of demand on that end.
Yeah.
All right. So again, when this certain industry, they anticipated in September there's going to be an increase of price. Government should have foreseen people when there's increase of price, they will go going for local rice. So it's not that because it's very expensive.
Yeah.
All right. And when that happened, people stop buying imported rice because it's too expensive. They are focusing on local rice. And that's where the supply, the demand went up. Of course, supply went down.
Yeah.
And we had shortages. If they have anticipated when if there's going to be increased price, people definitely. I mean, we have a lot of economists down there. We have a lot of policy makers, good policy makers, good strategists. Why didn't they anticipate this?
Yeah. Why didn't they anticipate this, Doctor?
One, I think the government is still relatively new, as Sarah mentioned. We have to give them a bit of time. However, they can't go on firefighting mode with every crisis that comes up because it will continue to come up. New things will continue to come up. So instead of firefighting, they need to see, like an analogy, put up a sprinkler system that will automatically turn on when some warning signal is triggered.
Correct.
So they'll need to have their ears on the ground. You're right, we have smart people. We need to train them what to listen for. Because what they're doing right now is just monitoring what's there in the market. They need to actually forecast ahead of time. So perhaps like better training for maybe our representatives in strategic countries that we trade with to actually have their ears on the ground, not just on, ceremonial kind of information, but more strategic economic related risk that Malaysia can be exposed to, so that the government has time to perhaps stockpile.
Yes.
You cannot stockpile chicken or eggs, but perhaps have some
better solution.
Better solution, because what happens now with the rice is people are panicking and they're hoarding.
Yep.
I've gone to supermarket, yesterday, and people are pushing trolleys like 3 or 4 packs of rice.
Wow.
If they can get it.
If they can get,
I don't think you can finish that. So it's the same situation during COVID when people are buying toilet roll, and I was like, you can use water. But people panic, and when they panic, they just, go on and do whatever, they see others are doing, so that they are not left behind.
Yeah, because these uncertainties, obviously, it falls back to the consumer, falls back to the people, because of the fear of that has been planted to all when such commotion happens, and you can't really fault the people, but then again, it's a bit of a trigger reaction, that kind of a thing, which is not good as well. Again, toilet paper is concerned. It's something that we need to be more mature, I guess, in regards of being a responsible citizen, a responsible consumer out there, to identify, where these problems may lie and how we are able to anticipate it, and also with the help of the government as well. But one thing's for sure, Sarah, asking your opinion about it as well, to help the government, just impose GST. Finish. Right? You're agreeing with that?
one of the good thing about our previous tax, which is GST, was a good tax, transparent, all right, and it's based on your consumption. And if you buy it, if you use it, then you pay for the tax. And basically, the mechanism is so sophisticated. Basically, everybody is getting, I mean, from the industry side, it's been well monitored. We don't have underground activities. Everybody is paying tax. It's a good system. Okay. But somewhere around some years, they have issues of implementation, enforcement, and so on. Like the input claiming tax, output claiming, and so many other issues. And product prices start to spiral up because of the calculation methods and so on. That point of time, I think people's confidence of GST have actually went down. But if you look into the GST model, it's not only been implemented in Malaysia. I mean, many other countries, almost about 70, 80 countries in the world, have already been implementing GST. And if they're already implementing GST, that means actually benefiting their country. Okay? I mean, of course, we would like to see the GST, if it comes back, it's a good thing. But how are they going to implement that? They need to look into the mechanism as well. Looking into the current, I mean, previously it was 6%. Maybe at the start, they need to start lower, all right, to build the confidence of the market. The infrastructure has been already set up back in the previous government when they have, I mean, POS systems and so many other trainings, it connects to all the other system database and so on, directly linked to customs, and the guidelines, the policy is already readily available. It's just that, as just now I said, we need a proper management system, number one, transparent. We need to have a leader who's visionary in certain departments who actually can foresee the issues and convince back the industry and also the rakyat to come out with GST. If, I mean, the government is willing to adopt GST.
So do you think, Doctor, that the rakyat is ready? Because again, it's somewhat of an allergy. Whenever somebody mentions about GST, everybody gets like, itchiness, some redness, something. It's like, oh, taboo, we can't actually talk about.
Maybe I want to add something on that.
Sure.
I mean, just now what I mentioned is the pro part.
Okay.
The con part.
Okay.
Right.
I was about to give it to Dr. Banya. Give us the con part.
Maybe you can listen from. I mean, of course, one of the bad thing about coming out with a new thing, new guideline, new policy to industry, end of the day, the cost is be transferred to consumers. All right, but I mean, I'll leave it to the expert to explain.
Doctor?
Well, if you ask anybody with a little bit of economics background, they would say that increasing the tax base is always a good thing. But what kind of taxes? And the current government would find themselves understandably reluctant to perhaps reintroduce GST because they were very vocal opposition against it. When they were on the opposite side,
introduced,
So they would be rightly worried that that they will be accused of So perhaps in the current situation right now, at least for budget 2024, it looks unlikely that GST will make a comeback. So as consumer, we can breathe a sigh of relief. But for the government, they still have this issue of they need to increase revenue. So if they have to rely on SST. They need to up the collection for that source. And perhaps they can take some pointers from income tax, where income tax collection is actually doing a great job right now. So there are things that can be learned from there that can improve collection for SST. Perhaps they might even consider looking at 2023 budget about that luxury tax. So they're thinking of a line of tax where they're looking at wealth taxes now. So we've never really had wealth taxes apart from RPGT in Malaysia on property. But there are a slew of wealth taxes, which are, from a tax perspective, seen as more progressive because you're taxing the rich, rather than GST, which is regressive, where the poor pays proportionately more. But there will be tax advisors who perhaps might not be so pro wealth taxes because it might impact them more. So government needs to be having advisors who are a little bit impartial here.
Sure.
But of course, at the end of the day, it's all about efficiency in collecting the taxes, which, being fair is one consideration, but which system collects more? Because any tax is not popular.
Yeah,
So if you're going to get hit with that, make sure that it's
Yeah.
worth it.
Like I say, it's some sort of an allergy,
Yes.
that kind of a thing, because it's a heavy.
No,
heavy
even when you
topic.
said it's allergy, I mean, we have one of the good when we have a zero rated and so on, so many other mechanisms. And other countries that didn't have that. So there were some pros and cons as well.
Yeah.
But again, as what Doctor said, I mean, of course, definitely this government is not looking into GST, so don't worry.
There could be a sequel, but not in your cinemas very, very soon, basically. We're almost running out of time here, but we do want to hear from both of you, just maybe, a minute or so, just a bit of an advice or whatever it is that you want to share to our fellow viewers. Maybe, Sarah, we can start off with you.
All right. As a consumer, you have rights. All right. We have 8 consumer rights, and one of the right is right to be heard and right to complain. All right. Make sure if you have any issues at the ground, let's say certain supply of food is not there, please don't just share it in your social media, but channel it to the proper department. Now, when you channel it to the proper department, then only they can take action on that.
Yeah.
Right. This is based on our working relation with KPD and so on. Certain times they are not aware about certain issues in certain areas. So again, as a consumer, please assert your right and make sure you are heard in the correct
Be heard
situation.
using the proper channels. Doc, what about you?
Well, if I'm talking to consumers, as a consumer myself, of course now everybody's advocating going for the cheapest possible option. But I think everybody should keep in mind value for money as well. And what is value for money to you as a consumer might differ. I would say that rather than buy cheapest of something, that would not stretch as far. You need to be a little bit more discerning consumer and take responsibility for your expenses. Know where it is, because at the end of the day, there's only so much your nanny or your parent can do for you. You need to be responsible.
Yeah, exactly. Be responsible. That's all it takes. But it may be harder than it is to actually do. But at the end of the day, you are your own person and you are responsible for yourself in order to make your own living the best way you possibly can. Thank you so much to both of our guests, Mr. Saravanan Thambiraja, the FOMCA Chief Executive Officer, together with Associate Professor Dr. Izrin Ismail, UM Faculty of Business and Economics Deputy Dean of Research. Thank you so much for being with us here on this show. And thank you to everyone out there who's watching us. Okay, as mentioned, again, be responsible, be vigilant, and if you want to eat chicken or rice or whatever, do it proportionately. At the end of the day, we are what we eat, and try to live the best out of it, and hopefully we can be a better person moving on. That's it for this episode of Wacana English Edition. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you guys do follow us on all of our socials, on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, X, Threads. We are all down there. We would love to hear from you guys as well. My name is Meor Addelan. Have a great weekend. Take care. Bye-bye. Assalamualaikum.